talk briefly about that. I'm going to start the recording.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Alex. It's a real honor anytime I get to talk about this work. It is so important and really dear to my heart. And so I am grateful for the space to get into it with you all. And thank you for following, whatever called you, each of you, to be here tonight. And those of you who are listening to the recording in the future, or your present, our future, thank you. Thank you for your presence. Okay, I'm popping up my slide, so bear with me for a moment while I share my screen. Do I have? Yeah, I do have permission. And while I do this, I'll invite you all to just take a minute to set your space in any way that feels nourishing for you. Make sure you have some water, maybe some tea. Sometimes I like to light a candle before I settle in for a class, especially in the evening. Here it's just 3 o'clock, but I know y'all are getting ready for evening over on the East Coast. Okay. See if I can find a good way to share this. You also may hear some music from my neighbors next door. They just moved in today, and I think are like having a move-in kind of jam session happening. I'm hearing a lot of Maroon 5. Hey, it's lovely, but you may hear it in the background. So I hope that's not disturbing or disruptive at all. Here we go. Okay. So welcome to Ancestral Celestial Herbalism. This is what I call my herbal practice. And it's an astro-herbal practice. And it's an and this class is focusing on where our theory meets our life and our practices in life. So in astro-herbal proxies. And yes, thank you so much, Alex, for supporting Temple of Earth through this offering as a fundraiser for this project. Temple of Earth is an herb shop. It's an apothecary and healing space that centers Black and Native medicine and healing here on Wichin Ohlone land in Oakland, California, my hometown. Opening this spring. So thank you all for your support. So I invite you to, during this time, we have 2.5 hours together. I invite you to take care of your body during this time. I'm hoping to have, and Alex, that's what the website said. I just want to make sure that, I know we had a little, okay, cool. Just want to make sure we're on the same page. Cool. So I'm hoping to make space for a break somewhere in the middle. And also, please take breaks wherever you need to. Use the bathroom, do what you gotta do. This is very much, my approach to astrology, my approach to herbalism is a very intuitive approach, which requires us to be in our bodies, requires us to take care of our bodies. And so I invite you to do that in very practical ways. I also invite you to do it in more subtle and sensitive ways, paying attention to what resonates with you that you hear, where in your body it resonates. Is it an excited feeling? Just paying attention to what you notice is resonating. Paying attention to what doesn't resonate and being curious about that as well. Make sure you have something to write with or, record or whatever. We'll do a little bit of writing together. And feel free to use the chat to connect with one another. It's a small group, so I'm hoping to actually begin by going around very quickly. And actually, I think we will use the chat. Just there's a lot that I want to get through in our time together. So, but I would love to hear from you all. What land you're coming from? You're like joining us from, where you're at, and can just take a moment to think about this and write it into the chat once when you feel ready. Um, but what in short, what called you to this space? I'm curious to get a sense of where your curiosities are, and yeah, we'll start with that. So, what land are you on? Where are you joining us from? And what brought you to this space? I think for the sake of time, it would be the best to do that in the chat. Okay, I see Lori is in Bluemont, Virginia. And looks like Ginger is joining from Maryland with a desire to expand Ginger's knowledge about the subjects, astroherbalism. Mm-hmm. I'm curious if you all can hear this music. It feels so loud from where I am.
I don't think I can hear it.
Oh, good. I love playing music while I teach, but I like to be intentional about what I play, you know?
Hi, for folks joining, we're just typing in the chat where we're calling in from and what we might want to learn here today.
What called you to this space? Natalie is joining from Maryland, interested in learning about Mother Earth as a sister to other planets and her relationship with her other family members. Beautifully said. Mm-hmm. And those of you who are just joining, feel free to read through the invitations on the screen here. And yeah, we are writing in the chat where we're joining in from and what called us to this space. Don't think too much about it. You can just speak right from the heart. Kathy, I am a Marylander. Pardon my ignorance. I'm a West Coaster. I am curious about this blended topic. My MIL was very engaged in astrology and birth charts. I'm not sure what that acronym means. MIL. I am very drawn to herbal learning. And Kathy, if you want to just clarify what you mean by MIL, you're welcome to. Alex, connect with ancestral knowledge and learn about how astrology and herbalism intersect. Sauter, West Virginia, always looking for new knowledge. Shay, Ashley Hoffman, hi, I am Ashley residing on Masawamak land in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. I've been wanting to further explore the connection, they're coming in quickly now, between herbalism and astrology. Okay. Mother-in-law, of course. Cool. Thanks, Kathy. Ruth, also from Maryland, PG County. I've been interested in herbalism, specifically wild herbs for the medicinal aspects and how they interact with the larger cosmos. Mm-hmm. I would like to be in a ritual practice with the seasonal plants and astrological transitions. Mm-hmm. Lacey, from Piscataway land in Frederick, Maryland. I've been delving into my ancestry and my own connection to the elements and land through that. Mm-hmm. Hello, my name is Claire from Maryland as well. Excited to learn more about herbalism and its connection to astrology. Mm-hmm. And Alex is residing on Piscataway land. Beautiful. Carrie from Maryland, drawn to the space by the combination between herbs and the universe. Feel very connected to some of my ancestors. Beautiful. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So I would like to transition into just tuning in with you all, a little grounding and centering meditation. Tuning into the space. You may see me glancing down every now and then. I have my notes here, analog in a notebook. So just bear with me I want to make sure that I get to everything that I had planned to share with you all soon. All right. All right, so let's do a little bit. So I invite you to get comfortable, keeping your spine tall, not straight, but tall, just so that um, the energy, the blood flow, everything can flow with ease. And Alex, if you all have a hard time hearing me at any point, will you just interrupt me? And also, thank you so much. If I miss anything in the chat, will you keep an eye on that too? Thank you. Okay. So let's tune in together. If you'd like, you can place your hand, maybe your left hand over your heart center and your right hand over that, or just have them resting on your lap, your hands resting on your lap, whatever is comfortable for you. And we're going to begin with our breath, just slowing down the breathing, following very sensitively, very subtly, following the sensation of breath as it enters through your nostrils, and witnessing your body as your muscles shift slightly as you breathe, expanding as your body invites the air to energize you, and releasing as you exhale. See that your exhales are just a little bit longer than your inhales. Just a way for us to get really, really present with how we feel at this moment. Anytime we're doing ancestral work, and in my practice and what I'll be sharing with you all today, astrology and herbalism are both ancestral practices. It's good to know how you feel, to stay in your heart, to tune into your own state. How are you feeling? Because of the ways that our body can communicate to us when we're in healing spaces. Continuing to slow down our breathing, just honoring the breathing with your presence, honoring your breath with your presence. Deep inhale. I invite you to hold the breath at the top of the inhale. Just letting the energy circulate, noticing whatever's there, no judgment, just noticing how you're feeling. And then exhaling slowly, smoothly. I invite you to, just with your mind's eye and your attention, direct your breath to your heart center. So we're going to breathe into and out from our hearts and center our energy, center our focus, and by centering our focus, we're centering our energy fields, our magnetic fields in our hearts, where they naturally emanate from. So we're allowing our field to flow with greater alignment. This is a centering practice. So breathing into our hearts, directing our breath there. Just trust. Feel your heart fill up as you breathe. Feel your heart open. Your shoulders might expand a bit. And then breathing out from your heart as well. So notice the rocking of your body as you breathe into and out of your heart, slowly, deeply. Notice what might come up. Just notice how you feel. Notice what comes up as you pay attention to your heart. The heart contains memory. So many nerve endings accumulate in our heart, in the organ of our heart. And in the 7 chakra system, in the chakra systems of the Indus Veda, from what's now India, the heart center, and in so many other traditions around the world, no doubt that all of us have some roots, some ancestral lineage in. The heart is known as the center of our being, and our divine place of connectivity with spirit, with spirit source, with the universe, across space and time. From the heart emanates mechanical vibrations, from the heart's pulse, sound vibrations that make up our energetic field that surrounds our body. And the heart also emanates subtle light particles in waves, that also make up our energy body or light body. And so just breathing into, as you breathe into your heart center, notice yourself filling up with your own energy from your heart. Notice your body and the energy around your body filling up with your own light. And if this doesn't resonate at all, and if you're like, what? I don't feel this. I don't know what she's talking about. That's cool. Like that's fine. You can just, what do you notice, you know? What do you feel? What do you see? What happens when you breathe there? And if it's like frustration, breathe into that. If it's sadness, breathe into that. Sometimes when we pay attention to our hearts, what has been under the surface gets permission to be expressed, you know, emotionally. So allowing it. Emotions are teachers. A few more breaths here. And giving thanks to your own heart and heart's wisdom, the intuition, the longing, the calling, whatever it is that led you to this place where you're studying medicine, you're studying herbal medicine and astrology with an ancestral lens, giving thanks to your heart for hearing that call and heeding that call. Now I invite you to do a little grounding. So on your next inhale, we're going to just tune into the earth and ground into the earth's energy together. So on your next inhale, you can direct the energy from your breath down through your body, down through where your body's making contact with whatever seat is beneath you, down through that seat and through all the layers between your body and the earth, sending your breath down through the first layers of earth beneath you, feeling your roots, just sending your roots, your energetic roots, down into the earth. And send them all the way down to the center of the earth. And even though I say send your roots down, you are always rooted. We're just paying attention to our roots when we breathe into them, when we breathe into the earth. And once you feel rooted, once you feel that you have reached the center of the earth with your breath, notice how you feel. Notice how it feels to be held by this huge planet through your gravity. And receive all that holding, gravitational holding. Receive that, whatever may come up in your heart when you tune into the planet that birthed you, the planet that held all those who came before you, just as the earth holds you. It's generous energy. It's turning, changing, moving energy of our home planet. I invite you, as you breathe into the earth and also breathing out from the earth, I invite you to just send a little whisper of a blessing down to the earth. Maybe it's just a thank you. Maybe it's maybe you want to blow a kiss. Whatever feels natural to you, in whatever way feels natural to you, just send a little blessing down through your energetic connections, your energetic roots, your cord, down into the center of the earth. And feel the earth receiving your energy, receiving your blessing, your intention, your love. Feel into that connection that is always there. And give thanks. A few more deep breaths in and out here, centered and rooted, grounded. Feeling the energy from your breath passing through your nostrils, through your open heart, down through your body into the earth, and back up from the earth, up the length of your spine, passing through and energizing your heart, up through the top of your head, your crown, connecting you up with the cosmos. And energy from the stars, the dynamic energy from the skies, as it receives your energy and turns back down through your crown, through your being, back down into the earth, this current of energy that's in constant exchange through our bodies. Just notice how connected you feel.
Sorry, Danielle, can you just speak a little louder?
Yes, thank you. A few more deep breaths into your heart, down through your body into the earth, through the center of the earth, back up into your body, up the length of your spine, and out through your crown, through the top of your head, and up into the cosmos, and back down from the cosmos, in through your crown, down into the earth, this current of energy that flows through your body. Subtle particles, light particles, and sound energy, vibrations. Just notice how connected you feel. From each of us, from our own respective places on this earth, coming together, we are also creating a field of energy. So notice how connected you feel within our circle of rooted, centered scholars and herbalists, astrologers, medicine folk. And when you're ready, I invite you to slowly, you can start to move your eyeballs around underneath your eyelids a little bit. Maybe take your time opening your eyes before you look at the screen again. You know, it can be jarring sometimes to drop into meditation and then open your eyes and stare at a screen. So take your time. So thank you, everyone. So I have a practice of dedicating my offerings, dedicating my classes. Um, it just feels natural to do so. And my practice is inspired by the future of my bloodline, the children generations and generations and generations forward, whether they come directly from my body or from um, my family, my lineages of many different kinds. My practice, my medicine practice, is dedicated to children of the future, and it's also dedicated to those ancestors who survived the atrocities of history in partnership with the plants and in partnership with the stars. Um, to those who not only survived the atrocities of history, but in times of flourishing health were able to cultivate medicine traditions that we are diving into today. My medicine practice is in honor of those ancestors and in honor of those future medicine folk to come. Um, we all have ancestors who practiced at this intersection of medicine. We all have ancestors who studied the stars. We all have ancestors who um, worked with plant medicine. And so our bodies have memory of these practices. And so it's you'll see how I approach this work as a ancestral practice, and it's very supportive to the medicine, allowing the ancestors to guide, and allowing the plants to guide us to our ancestors. And so I invite you all to see what that feels like for you. So on a very basic universal level, astrology is about the naturalness of attuning to the cycles of the energies around us. And astrology is specifically speaking to the cycles of the planets and how their vibrations impact ours. So where as I've alluded, astrology and herbalism for me are they're practices of reclamation. Astro herbalism is, as I said, a practice that we all have roots in. We now have coined it as astro herbalism, and I want to invite us all to be curious about our own traditions, our own ancestral traditions at this intersection of medicine. And so, as it is a reclamation of this intersection of medicine, what are we reclaiming? What is it that we are reclaiming? For me, when I part of my practice as in a way of honoring my ancestors is to be aware of the ways in which we may or may not be practicing in right relationship with the plants and with the earth. And so tapping into the ways in which our ancestors were able to do that, or we can envision forward that in the future we will be cultivating a space, dreaming about a space that our future descendants can live in on this earth in right relationship with the planet and in right relationship with the community of beings around us. And by right relationship, I mean that we are not extracting. We're not just here to just take, as we're taught in colonialism and capitalism. That we reject that. In fact, we ask ourselves, how can we, if where colonialism and capitalism asks us to disconnect from our environments, we ask ourselves, how can we connect more? Where we are asked within capitalism and colonialism to walk our lives as though we are not connected with one another and with the planet. We are we are, on, and with the planets all around us, we ask ourselves, how can we connect more? Where can we find connection? And our ancestors were able to find connection in the most, unlikely and impossible places, and we have our existence to today to prove that. And so astrology gives us a language for talking about our lived experiences, for talking about how we how we want to connect, how we are built to connect, and for understanding the collective experiences that we're all having together. Where colonialism has punished and constricted and like confused our concept of connection and intimacy, astrology gives us frameworks for relearning and re-envisioning what intimacy and connection in our personal relationships and as a collective can be like. Astrology gives us a language for self-understanding and for compassion for one another, and for connection with these massive turning, cycling, spinning energies around us, the planets and the stars, spinning around our sun with us. These ancient, tremendous planets, each one unique in its history, unique in its mineral and electrical, elemental compositions, each one unique in its sound and vibrational emanations, their own energetic fields, and their vibrational influence, therefore, on us here on Earth. So astrology is the interpretation of the subtle and the mechanical influences of the stars, the celestial bodies, upon one another, upon us, upon one another, upon one another, each planet, right? Their influences upon each other, and then those influences upon us, and so specifically centering our own position here on Earth. I like I like this image here at the bottom that shows the Earth as it's, moving in its orbit around the sun, and the protection that the Earth gets from the sun's rays by its own magnetic field. As such, we also have magnetic fields and energy fields that operate as our boundaries, the energy outside of our physical bodies that are between us and others. And so this is our spaces of how we receive connection from plants and planets vibrationally, as well as, of course, like ingesting physically. And we don't ingest planets, but we ingest plants. And as in similar ways, our vibrational connection with the planets. Okay. So this is called, I want to get into a little bit of astrology. So this is, you all have just bared with me for my foundational, these important pieces to me that are foundational and have to be discussed. And so now I'd like to get into some of the practice of astrology and herbal medicine and the two together. Okay, so what you're looking at is called the ecliptic. So the ecliptic is this belt of space that, from our perspective here on Earth, it appears that the sun is moving through this belt around us. So it's the horizontal belt of space that the sun is moving, that it appears that the sun is moving through, but in reality it's the Earth that's moving around the sun. And so this belt is the belt of stars that the sun shines in front of. And there's 12 of these constellations that move through this belt of space. And each constellation comes at a certain time on Earth, where the energy seasonally, the energy in terms of the weather, in terms of what's going on with the plant life on Earth, and vibrationally, more subtle levels, can be felt and seen. And so, I'd like to just take a little bit of time to talk about each of these um, constellations and the planets that are associated with each. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Before I go into this, I just want to give space for um, a breath because you all have been listening to me talk for a little while already, 45 minutes. So let's just take a moment. We have a sip of water. Okay. All right. So I'd like to start with Aries. So before I get into Aries, this image is depicting Leo season. So you see how the arrow is pointing from the Earth's perspective, looking at where the sun is. The constellation of Leo would be right behind the sun. And so that would be Leo season, August, um, July through August, um, and and so on. And so we see Aries as being the first of 12. We start with Aries, and that's because Aries. What time of year is Aries? Does anyone know?
March, like spring.
Spring, exactly. So it starts out like the seasonal year. Plants start to rise, the flowers start to open, and it begins the year in terms of the season. And so Aries is this little constellation here. Aries, as it is starting out the season. So there's 4 seasons, and so with each season there is a zodiac sign, a constellation that starts off the season. And the constellation that starts off a season is called a cardinal sign. So cardinal meaning like getting started, like getting things started. So energy is that like initiative energy. So every season has a cardinal constellation, and so Aries would be the cardinal, the cardinal sign of spring. And so Aries is cardinal, so when you hear that, you can begin to feel into the energy of Aries. Aries is a very much a go-getter and a starter energy. Because it's the first of all the cardinal signs, it's the first of all the signs, it is this real, like, innocent, this energy of innocent fire, you know, like this desire to really just start things, like start off projects and passion and so Aries is ruled by each constellation is ruled by a planet. That's the language that we use in astrology. It's ruled by a planet, and so Aries is ruled by Mars. And when you look at Mars, you can kind of feel into that energy. It's red, it's hot, its element is fire, and and so these are ways I'm giving you some sort of the patterns of the basics of the zodiac and the planets and their connections, so that you can tap into the energies of each. And what is Mars? What is the energy of Mars? What is the energy of Aries? What is an Aries like? We'll get into what that sort of, how that can be applied in a bit. Yeah, so Mars is the ruler of Aries, and Mars is all about your motivation, your drive, what gets you active. So next we have after Aries. Aries is March. Aries is late February to March. We have Taurus. So the season begins to develop a bit more. Things are really green. It's a beautiful time on Earth, depending where on Earth you are. And so we have Taurus, and Taurus is the bull. Taurus is an earth sign. So I said Aries is a fire sign, Taurus is an earth sign. And as the second sign in the season, it's known as a fixed sign. So Aries, as the first sign, is a cardinal sign. The second sign in a season is called a fixed sign. You can feel into what that might mean. It is the sign. It is the time of the season that you are in the season. You're in there. You didn't just start. You're not transitioning out. You are in the season. And so fixed signs, fixed energy can be a little stubborn, can be a little slow to move. And so these are qualities that Taurus is known for. Taurus is ruled by Venus. So Taurus is all about your senses, sensual beauty, what you see, what you smell, what you feel, natural, beautiful natural landscapes, comfort, physical comfort, right, in your body. It's an earth sign, so we can think, well, what might that mean? Grounded energy, physical energy, material. And so Taurus, like, um, uh, uh, Taurus folks are known, like stereotypical Taurus folks, love delicious food, love hosting people and having a beautiful setup for people and shopping and things like that. These are all concepts of Earth being very material, what you see, what's here physically. Venus, Taurus's ruling planet. I like this. I like seeing Venus as with this color. Venus is a star in the sky, a planet that has been noticed by the ancients, throughout all of human history. I'm confident that all of us have ancestors that had some significant relationship with this planet, because of how bright it is in the sky. And because of its interesting movement across the sky, it forms what's called a star point. It forms a star in the sky as it moves. So the ancients would follow, from many different traditions, would follow Venus as it moved in the sky and notice that it was, making the shape of a star. And notice what's going on during that time and track what's changing, what's happening as Venus is moving in this way. And this is how we formed our relationships with these planets, so that we could say things like Mars is about your drive. Venus, the energy of Venus, the influence of Venus here on Earth. It speaks to our relationships. And because at the core of all of our relationships is our values, Venus is all about our values, what we value. What we value in relationship with one another, what we value in our own relationship with our own existence. It's also about our values, like our sense of value in the sense of like how much something is worth. So finances is another relationship that that Venus influences. There are other planets that also have influences over finances. You'll find that astrology is there's so many layers of information, and there's so many pieces that have personalities that speak to one another, and there's a lot of like repetition and subtle differences. So I'm just giving you, I always feel this way when I talk about a planet or a plant in a really short amount of time. I feel like cheap, because I'm like, no, this is a whole huge complicated creature. Like we could spend a whole month talking about this. So I'm doing my best to be concise, and still be in respect to the energy, and do a good job of portraying the energy for you. When I'm talking about this, I invite you to just look at the image and ask yourself what it conjures for you. Same with the constellations here. So Venus rules Taurus. Venus also rules Libra, and we'll get to that when we get to Libra. Some of the planets rule more than one sign. Okay, one more thing about Venus that I just have to mention. We're going to talk a little bit more about it because Venus is doing some things in the sky right now that I want to get to. So Venus, there's goddesses across the planet. There's goddesses that are thought of as being connected to Venus, or Venus being an incarnation of, a celestial incarnation of, I think of Inanna from Sumeria, ancient Sumeria. And so there's all these beautiful myths around what happens when Venus was a beautiful night star, the brightest star in the sky, and then slowly, slowly, slowly it becomes a morning star and you don't see it at night anymore. What's Venus doing? And so there's all these beautiful stories and myths around what's going on with the goddess Inanna, or with different goddesses from different traditions when Venus does this. When Venus does this, it's called a retrograde. You may have heard that term. It's actually just an apparent motion where it looks like the star is going backwards, but it's not. It's just that the Earth and Venus have come to a moment where there's like an optical illusion between. It's like one is moving a little faster than the other, and it appears that the other one's going backwards, but it's actually not. It's just like that really brief moment of like distortion, kind of like when you're driving on the freeway and you see maybe a truck go by and you're like almost going the same speed, and then one of you slows down a little bit and it looks like they're going backwards, but they're actually not, and it's like a mind. I used to see that when I was a kid and get really like freaked out about it. Yeah, it's like that. Okay, so but because of the that moment, you can, like I said, when I was a kid and that would happen on the freeway, it had an impact on me. It was a little strange to witness, and I had to, figure it out. I had to think, oh wait, what's real? Did we just go backwards? Like, did that truck just go backwards? Similarly, when planets are retrograde, we are invited to review. It's all of the R words, the re words. Remember, review, return. It's an revisit. It's an opportunity to like reevaluate our relationship with that energy. So Venus is currently retrograde, and we'll get into that. Venus is known as a goddess of love, this benevolent goddess, this energy of receptivity, connection, because Venus is all about our values and our relationships. How we live in accordance to our values. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So, Gemini. So Gemini, as you see, the stars look like two people. The twins is the symbol for Gemini. Gemini comes at the end of spring, beginning of summer. So the sign that is, or that period of time, and the stars that are in the sky at that time, the sign that is in the sky at the end of a season, as the season transitions into another season, are called, so there's cardinal, fixed, and oh gosh, the word is escaping me right now. I'm gonna say it when it comes back to me. It's because I'm thinking too hard about it.
Is it mutable?
Thank you. Yes, I was going through TR words in my mind for some reason. Mutable. Thank you, Alex. So Gemini is the mutable spring, mutable air sign. Gemini is an air sign. And so as you see, we went from Aries, that's fire, starts off the season, to Taurus, that's earth, grounded, fixed, to Gemini, which is the mutable sign, the changeable, transitionary. And so Gemini is, as being an air sign, the element of air. And again, as I'm talking about all this stuff, you may have a whole catalog of information about these things that I'm saying that maybe you haven't held in the context of astrology. Tap into that. When I talk about air, when I talk about the elements, what does that bring up for you? Gemini as an air sign is about how we think, how we communicate, how we teach, how we listen. Gemini is known as like the trickster, the crossroads, and Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury has similar descriptors. Here's Mercury here. So Mercury is a very fast-moving planet. Mercury influences our passing along of information, technology, travel, Um, yeah, Mercury is the ruler of Gemini. It's also the ruler of Virgo. So the air constellation that Mercury rules is Gemini. The Earth constellation that Mercury rules is Virgo. So we'll get to Virgo. Okay, on to the next season, summer. So we have another cardinal sign, and that's Cancer. Cancer is cardinal water. So we've had fire, we've had earth, we've had air, now we're at water. And then we'll return to fire with Leo. So Cancer is cardinal air, and Cancer is the initiator of home, family, um, caregiving. Cancer is known as the mother, the divine mother. Cancer is affiliated with the oceans. The moon is Cancer's ruling planet. The oceans, as the primordial waters of the earth, where life came forward on the planet Earth. Also, the poetry there is around the womb and the amniotic fluids, the waters of the womb. The birthplace of life for humans. So Cancer is all about family, belonging, connection, yeah, nurturance, mothering, remothering, reparenting as we get older. Cancer speaks to all those themes, as do the moon. The moon is our arm of connection between us on Earth and the other planets. The moon speaks to our how we sense, how we feel, how we sense, what gives us emotional security, what our feeling nature is, what our emotional needs are. The moon speaks to those themes, and you can see how that's connected to the themes of motherhood and parenting, because our parents are our first attachment figures and teach us through our relationships. They are often our first relationships in life, and we learn about our own needs through those relationships, how to have them met. And so the moon speaks to each of us. The moon and all these planets were in a certain sign at the time of our birth, so we can look to that information to find out, to see what's reflected about our own selves. So you can see what sign your moon is in and find out if that resonates for you, or if that teaches you anything maybe you hadn't noticed, or maybe it fully is like, yes, this speaks to exactly how my emotional processes. And we'll get into how you can find that out in a bit. All right. Now we're on to the fixed fire sign, the fixed summer sign, and that is Leo. Leo is a fire sign. Leo's ruling planet is the sun. I love this energy. Leo is, and the sun are all about how we radiate, how we express ourselves, how we our radiant body. So how we shine, how we innocently bring ourselves out and into the light. Leo is all about play and just innocent creativity, innocent pleasure, joy. Animals and children are affiliated with Leo. And so is like performance and like bravado and ego, in a sense, because we're speaking to how we as multidimensional beings are expressed through a personality. The sun is all about our identity, and also what energizes us, and in what areas we really shine. All right. So then we move into Virgo. So Virgo is our next mutable sign. And as I mentioned, shares a ruling planet with Gemini, that's Mercury. So Mercury rules Virgo. Virgo is mutable earth. So we've talked about mutable air, being about like transiting of information, passing on information, communication, this changeable energy. And then Virgo is mutable earth. And so what we talked about with earth, with Taurus, if you imagine that, our physical realities, Virgo is like a master manifester. Virgo is all about how we can change our physical realities and what pieces need to be reorganized and shifted and put in place in the right order in order to manifest a reality. Yeah, so what else do I want to say about Virgo? Yeah, we talked about Mercury. I'll leave it there. Okay. Next, we have our first cardinal sign of the fall. So Libra begins the fall. Virgo has ended the summer. Libra begins the fall. So we talked about cardinal water, Cancer. We talked about, oh, I also didn't mention Cancer. I mean, I think it was probably implied, but Cancer is known as being very emotional, very like emotionally connected. Water, the element of water, speaks to our subtle connections, right? And our emotions are a subtle expression. It's felt in our bodies and in our beings, in our energy bodies. And its emotions can be passed along through our energy bodies to one another and through our faces and our expressions and our voices. It's information in motion. And so water is that motion. Water also, water represents just the current of connections. Libra, that was a bit of a tangent. Libra is the cardinal, is cardinal air. Okay, cardinal water. Aries is cardinal fire. Libra's cardinal air. Cardinal air is really passionate about initiating harmony, balance, to the degree that Libra can have a like stereotypical Libra can have a bad reputation for being superficial, because Libra energy wants to, or people with a lot of Libra energy tend to be very gifted at subtly tweaking things so that it's all good, so that there's a feeling of harmony. Libras are known for being great hosts and great like party throwers, because they can feel, okay, we need to change the music, we need to change the lights, making everything feel really like the flow is really good. Libra is also ruled by Venus. And so Libra speaks to the ideal side of Venus, the ideas side of Venus, air. The thoughts, the concepts of harmony, concepts of balance, justice. Libra is not superficial at all. Libra speaks to, in East Africa, in ancient Egypt, Kemet, Libra was portrayed as Mat or Mayat, who is a deity, a goddess, who weighs the heart after we pass. So in that tradition, after we die, our heart is weighed by this goddess Mat on a scale, which is the symbol for Libra. On one side of the scale is the heart. On the other side of the scale is a feather. And so Mat, Libra, is this energy of are we how aligned with our values are we living, and are we how light is the heart? How light is the heart? What is burdening us? What are we carrying? What are we carrying that we can let go of for greater harmony? Libra is all about harmony and balance and justice. Okay, moving along. Oh yeah, there we have Venus. Okay. Next we have Scorpio. This diagram has like it says Scorpius and Capricornus. I'm not sure why. Scorpio is the name of this constellation. It kind of looks like a scorpion, and that is the symbol for Scorpio. Scorpio is fixed water. What is fixed water? What does that mean? Like, what happens? How do you fix and hold and contain water? The only way to really do that is to freeze it. Water becomes ice. And when water is frozen, it expands. Scorpio is this passionate energy of um, just determination, determined depth. Scorpio is willing and determined to um, experience and be in whatever space it needs to be. Because it's a water sign, we're often talking about emotions. Scorpio has an incredible depth of emotion. Symbolically, it helps me sometimes to think. So sometimes I talk about the planets and the constellations in terms of people and like interpersonal relations, and then sometimes I talk about them in terms of the natural world, because it's sometimes helpful to think about them about these energies beyond personal traits, personality traits, to help us just deepen into what the energy is like. So Scorpio energy, I always think about like underground tunnels of water rushing through an underground like aqueduct, deep underground tunnels. You are whatever scuba diving, and you go in and you have no idea how far it's going to go, and it goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. Scorpio is so determined to go whatever the depths that is needed. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, and so Pluto is furthest out planet. Pluto is very important in a lot of traditions of astrology. Pluto speaks to our soul's determination to evolve, and as such, Pluto requires us to transform. It's known as the transformer. Pluto doesn't care if it's easy or hard. When we have Pluto transits, and I'll talk about what that means, we are being asked to change. And whether we go out screaming or whether we surrender and let it happen, Pluto doesn't care. So because of that, Pluto can have a reputation as Pluto is affiliated with like life and death, right? A rebirth, transformation, and so it can. People think of ego death as being associated with Pluto, because Pluto is where we're asked to change, to make changes in how we self-identify and the roles that we associate ourselves with, and how we think of ourselves, and how we who we say we are. All of these concepts of ego that are very important to us being in a collective society with one another. But Pluto asks us to be true to our souls. And so I love Pluto. It's very, very, very intense, as is Scorpio. So you can, as you hear about the planets that rule each sign, see if it helps you to have a deeper understanding of that sign and that planet, and also see what questions come up and what hunches of your own come up. Okay, next. So Scorpio being fixed water. Next we have mutable fire. Mutable fire. Remember, mutable signs, mutable energy is changing. It's changeable. And it's like, has this spark of magic, especially Sag, because Sag is fire. So Sag is mutable fire, and mutable fire is quick spreading. Sagittarius is expansive energy, a desire to travel and to see and experience life. The symbol for Sagittarius is a centaur, a person with a human body and a human, I guess, upper half on a horse's body, which you think, well, why? It's because a horse can travel quickly, and so yeah, it's basically a human with a vehicle, an animal vehicle. Scorpio loves like quick movement and exploration and adventure, and so the human top is holding a bow and arrow and shooting an arrow. So Sagittarius is really this energy of like I see what I want, and I'm going to get it. No questions asked. Sagittarius is ruled by, also for that reason, Sagittarius can be really funny because there's like there's no hesitation. It's like, I'm going right for the center of it. Sag is ruled by Jupiter. I love this image of Jupiter with all of its moons. And so Jupiter is this expansive, huge planet. So both of these energies of Jupiter and Sag, Jupiter really speaks to like faith and trust and wisdom. We'll talk about Saturn in a bit, but where Saturn can be our no's, Saturn is about no. Jupiter can be our yes. Jupiter is where do we want to just put all of our faith into and just be so generous and so big and open and present. And also because Jupiter and Sagittarius are about expanding our horizons and expanding ourselves, they can be very cosmically connective energies. Okay, yes. Capricorn. I'm like, asking myself to not go on and talk forever about each of these constellations and planets that I love and am passionate about. So Capricorn is next. Capricorn is cardinal. That means that it starts the winter. And so Capricorn is cardinal earth. So we've had, let's review, cardinal air, Libra, cardinal water, Cancer, and cardinal fire, Aries. So Capricorn is our cardinal earth sign. And Capricorn is this energy of determined endurance, building, willing to master and apprentice to the point of mastering an art or a goal. Capricorn is patient and conservative. Capricorn is the goat that is climbing the cliffs, not deterred by what's perceived as impossible. Think of, the connection between the signs that come before it. So we have the determination of Scorpio. We have the courage and willingness and adventurousness of Sag. So we're building off of those energies. We get to Capricorn. So we get to Earth. We get to the cardinal energy, cardinal Earth there at that point in the season. And that energy is now, okay, we've got all this and we're at, almost at the end. It's this older energy. It's almost, we started in Aries. We're just a few more signs away from the end, the last sign. It's this energy of willingness to go the long haul and to build something lasting. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. And so Saturn is also the ancient, before Uranus and Neptune and Pluto were discovered by Western astrologers, Saturn was known as the ruler of Aquarius as well. Now it's not. Now Uranus is. But yeah, so Saturn rules Capricorn and previously Aquarius. And Saturn is this, it's all about the boundaries and borders of reality. What creates our reality? What sets up our reality? The structures of reality. And our boundaries and borders, it's where I end and where you begin. It's, this is me, and then nope, this is not me. Nope. Saturn in that sense is our nose, and it's, I'm not saying nose like this, I'm saying like N-O''S. Saturn speaks to how we hold our boundaries for ourselves and with others. And then collectively, Saturn speaks to like borders, national borders, and I always think of the riverbanks of a river. So you have the water that goes through, and then you have the banks that create the structure of the river. And we need our no's so that we can have our yeses, right? So Saturn is also because it delineates reality. It also speaks to perceived restrictions and constriction and loneliness and depression. Heavy. It's a very heavy and cold energy. Capricorn can also, reflect some of these energies, but as a planet, Saturn really represents those energies. And so, yeah, you can look to see, well, where is Saturn in my chart, and where do I experience, what's my relationship like with this energy? All right. Next, we have Aquarius. So Aquarius. I'll just take a moment to note that Aquarius is, you see this line is just helpful to point it out, but Aquarius is directly opposite Leo. And so Leo, remember, was fixed fire. Aquarius is fixed air. And so the constellation that is directly the constellations that are directly across from one another, they're 6 months apart from one another. And so they're going to be the same mode. A mode, cardinal, fixed, and mutable are the modes. So they're the same mode. They are actually on a continuum of energy. So Aquarius and Leo, they speak to one another. They are opposite one another in the sky. They are in conversation with one another energetically within this sphere of energy that we're looking at right now. And so Leo being fixed air, fixed fire. Aquarius is fixed air. So you can think of, as I've discussed, fixed energy being a little more stubborn. It's in the middle of the season. It's the middle of winter. And so it's, very in there, knows what it knows, and is strong in what it knows. Aquarius is about knowledge as an air sign. Aquarius can have a bad reputation of being know-it-all energy. I don't know how common that is. I grew up in a family of Aquarians, so I'm very familiar with that. My sister, my mother, my 6-year-old, all Aquarians, and myself. So yeah, Aquarius is a humanitarian, connection-seeking, revolutionary energy. Aquarius is, although it's fixed in a place of knowing what needs to shift, knowing what needs to change, and being Aquarius has a reputation of being weird, being out there, an outlier. Remember, it previously was ruled by Saturn. Currently, Aquarius is seen, well, depending on the astrologers, but modern astrologers see Aquarius as being ruled by Uranus, or both, as I perceive it as being ruled by both. And so Uranus is the outlier. Uranus is the revolutionary. Uranus was discovered in the sky during the American Revolution. It represents this revolutionary energy, this energy of breaking free, breaking things, breaking loose. It's this electrical spark of energy, and it also rules the nervous system in that sense. The nerves are, have an electrical, communicate through electricity, and so Aquarius also rules all of these themes. Yeah, I love Uranus. Uranus is the one to bring in the ideas that shift everything to being in greater balance. So again, it's helpful to remember as we're going through each of these individual signs that they are all connected. They're all speaking to one another in different ways. One, by those signs on the same continuum. So Leo, the same axis is the term. Leo and Aquarius, Capricorn, Cancer, Sag, Gemini, right? Mutable. Scorpio, Taurus, fixed earth and fixed water. We have our cardinal signs, Libra and Aries are opposite one another. Virgo, Pisces, we'll talk about. When you start seeing them as an axis, it can really deepen your understanding of each sign. You know, you have to ask yourself, well, how is Aquarius and Leo connected? They seem so different. How are they connected? They are opposite ends of a spectrum. So that can help you to deepen into the energy of each sign. Okay, Aquarius, fixed air. Next we have Pisces. Pisces is mutable water. Pisces is the oldest sign, right? It ends if Aries is the baby that starts out the season, Pisces culminates the season. And as the culmination, and as a mutable sign, Pisces is this energy of all connectedness, um, sensitive. All the water signs are deeply sensitive energies. Pisces is this energy of super connectedness and sensitivity to the collective, sensitivity to one's own, heart and emotional experience. Of course, these are not rules. There's always tons of other things going on for a person in a person's natal chart currently with what's going on with the stars and how that's impacting them. But if we're isolating this energy of Pisces, it's known as being very sensitive, and you can kind of, that it makes sense when you think about being so open and so connected to all that has come before you, and to and to all of the universe and all of existence. That can be vulnerable. It can be a vulnerable space. And so Pisces is this vulnerable feeling, flowing energy, water sign, mutable. So Pisces, Virgo, when you see the connection, when you think about the connection between those two, Pisces, Virgo is this energy of organizing pieces of something to create something deep and meaningful and connected. And so Virgo, we have the ability to see all the pieces and put them in the correct order, to see something through, to hold all of that. And then Pisces is like the spiritual and intuitive and creative inspiration, and the spirit that inspires the creation that Virgo, this earth creator, this mutable earth sign, is organizing. Virgo Pisces is like this priestess energy. So you can, if you're curious too, you can go, sign by sign and look at each axis and ask yourself how they could possibly be connected, and feel into it for yourself. Okay, Pisces is ruled by Neptune. Previously, Pisces was ruled by Jupiter before Neptune was discovered. And so now Pisces is known to be ruled by Neptune. Neptune is how I think of Neptune as how we walk as spirit embodied. It's how we it's how we dream. It's our dream life. It speaks to our subtle connections, our subtle connectivity. It speaks to our sense of fantasy, so dreams and fantasies, and in that sense also it can speak to like how we want to escape, or how we seek escape. And Neptune is also this energy of confusion, because it's that space, it's that liminal space, that space between being embodied and not being embodied. It's like how we walk, how we come to life as spirit. It's ourselves as spirit embodied. So it's that moment of like incarnation. Neptune's a really interesting energy. It also can be because like thinking about those themes of Pisces, thinking about those themes of connection and of the culmination of all at once, and of our like spirit's incarnation, it can be this energy of compassion, of great compassion. Okay, so we've just went through all 12 of the signs, and all of the planets as well. So what we've talked about is what is happening, what we've gone through all of these planets and the signs. I'd like to now talk about what's happening now that we have like a foundational understanding of some of the energies at play with astrology through this framework of astrology. Let's talk about what's going on currently. There's a lot going on. There's always so much going on. You know, you don't need astrology to tell you that. I felt called to talk about Venus retrograde. I felt called to talk about Mars in Capricorn. And so I will, and then also Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces. So what do these things mean? Let's see. Yeah, we'll let Hawthorne hang out while we talk about this. Okay. So I talked about what Venus retrograde is all about, what that means, what a retrograde means. When Venus is retrograding, this is the deep evaluation that we're all being collectively invited into of our values. Venus went retrograde at the turn of the year, and it's in Capricorn. So what we'll start doing now is piecing together some of these pieces that we've just talked about. Venus, Capricorn, a review of our values in a sign that is slow moving and this earth, this cardinal earth sign. So Venus in Capricorn being retrograding has been inviting us to think about our relationships, what we value in relationship, what we want to build. How do we build lasting relationships, right? Capricorn, lasting, enduring relationships. It's asking us to envision what it would feel like, what it does feel like to be in alignment with our values in our relationships. And that can be in all kinds of different areas of different types of relationships. To find out, I mean, there's two things I'll say here. To find out how this is hitting you particularly, you can just ask yourself what resonates for me with this. If this is what's going on in the sky right now, what's coming up for me? What type of evaluation of my relationships have I been in? Has it been my romantic relationships? Has it been my work relationships? Has it been my relationship with myself? Has it been my relationship with my finances? My career? You know, what part of your life? My children is under review. Which relationships are under review for you right now? And the other way that you can approach this is by looking at your own birth chart. And because, as I mentioned, Venus is retrograde in Capricorn, Venus is in Capricorn right now, that means that Venus and Capricorn are together in the sky. That's what when we say that a planet is in a sign, that's what it means, that they're there together within a certain they're close enough to each other that we can say that they are together. And so so what you can do is, because we know that Venus is in Capricorn, you can look at your birth chart to talk about what that means and what a birth chart really is. But you can look at your birth chart and see and find Capricorn. Where is Capricorn in your chart? The birth chart is split up into sections of your life and sections of yourself, split up into 12 sections. They're called houses, and each one reflects, each one is affiliated and associated with a different sign of the zodiac. And so many of the themes, the cycle that we just walked through from Aries to Pisces, is reflected in the 12 houses of the birth chart, the 12 areas of you and your life. So you can look at your chart, you can find, well, which house of mine is in Capricorn? And think about what that's been like to have Venus in review, in retrograde there, in that house, in that part of you. And just see if it resonates with you. And yeah, we want to use astrology as a way to see ourselves reflected, as a way to be offered a framework to look within, not as a way to like freak ourselves out or get nervous about and anticipating what might come, especially not at beginning stages of learning astrology or ever. So yeah, so you can take a look and see what your which house of yours is in Capricorn, and you can look into what that house represents and see if it resonates for you. So Venus being retrograde in Capricorn calls for Hawthorne for me. I've been really loving Hawthorne, particularly in these last few weeks. As Capricorn can be really cold and can be a scary place to have an open heart. And so Hawthorne can, be that aid and that support for us in keeping our hearts centered and soft and open, and our backs strong and our hearts open. I included a image of the thorns here so that we could be reminded of the boundaries that this plant supports us with. And so I'm talking about the energy and the essence of Hawthorne. Similarly, we know that Hawthorne works on the heart. And so the medicines that I'm talking about today, the plants that I'm talking about today, I'm talking about them energetically. I'm talking about them, their psychospiritual influences. Not so, because that's what we're talking about here with the planets, right? Not so much the physiological, but you can also feel into the poetry with the physical medicine of these plants too. And it's quite possible that the physical medicine can also be called for at this time. All right. What else is going on right now? So nothing happens in isolation. Mars is also in Capricorn. Mars went into Capricorn yesterday. Mars is this courageous energy. It's as I said, it's what gives us what our motivations are, what drives us. It's also like how we fight and what we fight for, what we're passionate about. And so Mars being in Capricorn is a really beautiful place for Mars, because it's like we're all getting this invitation into developing, directing our attention, our drive, our focus, our will, our actions to creating something and building something lasting, and bringing all the courage of Mars to what we want to create, what we want to build. And so this is an opportunity to me to direct our energies and really figure out, well, what is it that I feel like I can do that. I can definitely do that. What is it that I'm feeling like I can bring this? And that's like a big, lofty thing that might take time to build. Mars is going to bring us the courage to apply ourselves and to really decide, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to create this thing. What kind of supports are needed when we are, and so I'm talking about if we take this, if we direct our intention towards making the most of this transit. We can also, just pay attention and watch and see what happens, because sometimes it really depends on how it's hitting your chart. meaning like how the current chart of stars in the sky right now, how the current mapping of stars in the sky and how they're moving compares to how the stars were moving at the time and place of your birth from where you were. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But to me, Mars in Capricorn calls for borage to support us in that remaining heart-centered, right? Venus is in retrograde. We want to be in touch with our values. We want to keep our hearts open. And so borage then can come in to really to move, fluidly from a heart-centered place as we are, and really to have the courage to create our dreams, to have the courage to apply our attention and our skills and tools and our motivation and our drive to building something ambitious. Okay, the third thing that's going on right now that I wanted to talk about is Jupiter and Neptune are both in Pisces. And those are the two planets that astrologers think of as the rulers of Pisces. Neptune being the modern ruler and Jupiter being the ancient ruler. And so beautiful places for these planets. This is a time of, it can be, as I talked about Neptune as being as much about our dreams and our fantasies as it can also be about our escapist tendencies. And like this, a sense of confusion and a sense of maybe disembodiment. As it, Neptune speaks to our embodiment, it also speaks to our disembodiment. And then Jupiter comes in with all of its just bigness and expansive energy and like desire to grow, and all that like benevolent, growing, expanding energy. And we, with what's going on with Venus, with what's going on with Mars, and our intentions to staying in the heart and to staying aligned with our values and to being courageous, we want to be clear. We want to be to apply our visions, Neptune, apply our biggest visions, Jupiter, our biggest, like loftiest, most the ones that we have to really have faith in. We want to see with clarity. And so California Poppy comes in and supports us to get out of the head and into the heart, to integrate, the mind and the heart and the voice, and to bring some lucidity, to bring some clarity to our visioning. Literally, many of you, I'm sure, although I am in California, so maybe this is more of a well-known thing here, I'm not sure. But California Poppy is supportive for lucid dreaming. So it's supportive for lucidity in general, but it also, on a physical level, a tea of California Poppy can be mildly sedative and support us to remember our dreams, to bring our consciousness into our dreams with us. And so in general, California Poppy can be really supportive in lucidity, whether it's through our dreams or through, our waking life. So these are the medicines that have been calling to me through this astrology that we are under today, the influences that we are vibrating through us today. And then I also wanted to call in redwood, again, another very Californian plant. But really, I felt called to bring in some tree medicine. Because we are in the midst of a lot of earth energy. We are also having a lot of our earth energies, all this stuff happening in Capricorn, and also in Taurus. Uranus is currently in Taurus, and so that's inviting change to the way that our world looks and feels and smells, and like and our the way that we hold value, the way that we hold money, what feels important to us, what feels harmonious and beautiful to us is all like it's all being asked to change. And this has been the case for a little while through the pandemic. To me, it feels like a time for some grounding and some ancient wisdom. And redwoods. This is why particularly I called in redwoods as the tree that that spoke to me, because redwoods are these massive, massive, beautiful, beautiful trees. They are so very old, and the energy is very, very elderly, very like grandparently, um, very grounding and compassionate. And I feel that this is called for with the current astrology, with to help us to really get present into all the change that's happening in Earth signs right now, and ground ourselves through all of the Piscean energy that's happening too. And also, there's a lot going on in Aquarius right now, which is an air sign. It's very intellectual, likes to think things through and overthink. So, getting some Saturn's in Aquarius right now. Getting some grounding felt appropriate. All right. So, take a sip of water. Okay. How are you all doing? Come to the chat. Has it been hard to hear me at all? Okay. Thank you, Kimberly. All right. Just a reminder, take care of your body. No, you're taking in a lot of information right now.
Here's a question. How can we accurately learn about our natal chart if we don't have the time?
Wow. I just had this conversation in an astro study group that I'm facilitating yesterday. And I knew it was going to come up, and I thought to myself, I should talk about this, but it didn't make it into my notes. So I'm really glad you asked this. So our natal charts are your natal chart or birth chart. You can use them interchangeably. It's taking all of where the stars were at the time of your birth, the time and place in relationship to where you were in your first moment of incarnation, your first breaths. It's a mapping of the sky, the entire dynamic sky at that time and place on 2D on a piece of paper. And so it is a lot of information. We're talking about moving planets, right? And capturing the exact mathematics of where they were in the sky and where they were moving, and in relationship with one another, and in relationship with you. So it's a mapping of that very moment of your incarnation, that we can look at to see information about this incarnation for you. You can pull up a chart for the birth of anything. You can pull up the chart for the birth of a country, or of a business, or an animal. Without your birth time, there's information that there's some information that you can access if you have the birthday and place without the time. You can still, because a lot of the planets are slower moving, they won't change in a day. Pluto takes 200 something years to switch to, that's not correct. Pluto takes 225 years to get from where it was back to where it was again, to cycle through all the signs. But yeah, it takes some planets, it takes them a year to switch signs. Some take, like the moon takes 2.5 days. And so the slower moving, further out planets will still be in the same, most likely will still be in, you can figure out where they were. You can get that accurate, unless they happen to switch signs on that very day. Then you'll have to ask yourself, well, which one do I identify with? Do I identify if Saturn moved from Capricorn to Aquarius on the day I was born and I don't know what time, I can ask myself, well, do I feel like my Saturn is in Aquarius or do I feel like my Saturn is in Capricorn? So this is a really important question to me because so many people don't have access to this information. So many people don't have a birth certificate or don't have folks in their lives that they can ask for that information from. And so there's a couple things. You can begin with what you do know. Like I said, those further out planets. You can intuitively walk through the other planets that you don't know and ask yourself, what do I resonate with? There are astrologers who specialize in doing this with folks. And so you can work with an astrologer to help you to develop your chart using both a combination of known placements and your intuition and then the astrologer's knowledge and ability to listen to you and witness you and map that out astrologically. There's also just something that I tell folks in this situation is that astrology is a language. There are so many different types of astrology. One could say that they conflict, but in my opinion and the way that that I hold it and that a lot of astrologers hold, the differences in interpretation and differences in language and frameworks and even different ways that to draw up a chart, just disagreements, different ways of approaching it. This is an ancient practice, so there's been many different routes that it has taken, and so there really isn't a right way to do it. And so there are so many different traditions of astrology. There are many in which you don't need your birth time. Some of the more ancient traditions didn't calculate it by birth time. It was really the day. It was like sun up to sundown, and looking at the entire course of the day, of the astrology for the day. And so there's some stuff that you won't be able to find out without the birth time, like the moon. You can look at it. It changes signs every 2.5 days, so you can ask yourself, well, it changed on the day that I was born. Do I feel like this one or do I feel like that one? The rising sign is one thing that changes, minute to minute. It changes very quickly throughout the day, and so the rising sign sets up the rest of the chart. So without the time and without the rising sign, you're not going to be able to look at the houses of a chart. And so I'll explain what that means. That might sound like gibberish, but I'll explain what that means. And so Ginger, let me know if that answers your question. As you listen to this next portion of our workshop, let me know if you still have questions about that. Thank you for that question. And I'm seeing Kimberly shares. It's really helpful to have this. I just started tracking the correlation between when the moon is traveling through my houses. So interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. So this is my chart. I am showing it to you so that I can walk through the houses a little bit and just like, what are we looking at here? Okay, so this is one of the ways in what's known as tropical or Western astrology. A chart looks like this. It's like a pizza, and it's split into these 12 slices, always 12. In Vedic astrology, which comes out of the Indus Valley, the chart is a square, and it's mapped out in a different way, and there's significant differences to the Vedic astrological tradition. That is really interesting. You can pull your chart in. You can see a Vedic astrologer, and you'll be told that you're a different sign, and you'll have a whole different read. And it's a really interesting and cool way to find out, to see yourself from a different lens. If you have like an attachment to your astrology in the Western astrology, it can be a really informative and interesting way to get more information about yourself astrologically by looking at your chart through a whole different system. Anyway, so what we're looking at here is this line that's going across the chart horizontally. This is the horizon. This is the horizon. Where it says ASC, that's the eastern horizon. And here, the opposite point, this is the descendant. So ASC is the ascendant, and it's the eastern horizon, and then the descendant is here, and it's the western horizon. The eastern horizon, the ascendant, is your rising sign. That's the grouping of stars that was on the eastern horizon at the moment that you were born is your rising sign. So for me, Cancer was there on the eastern horizon when I was born. The moon was also not too far from the horizon. And so that makes me a Cancer rising. And it sets up my birth chart so that the first house begins in Cancer. There are many different house systems, ways to pull up a chart. They'll all look like this, but they'll all like be round like this, but I use a house system called Campanus. We don't have time to get into like what that means, but there's a lot of different house systems. Whole houses and Placidus is a really common one. I suggest you know, if you're curious, if you feel called to it, look into the way that the differences in the ways that each system calculates your chart. They're subtle, but they make a big difference. And to me, Campanus is the most accurate. They're all just mathematical differences in how they'll plot out your chart. You can also pull up your chart in multiple systems and compare and see what you relate to. But I'm using Campanus house system, the system here called Campanus. Okay, so each one of these little slices of the pie is a house, and each one rules a different. It speaks to a different part of who you are, a different part of your life and yourself. So first, I want to just highlight some of the patterns of a chart. The bottom half is actually the northern hemisphere of the chart, and the top half is the southern. Funny enough, but I'll refer to it as upper and lower. So the lower half of the chart speaks to the more personal parts of yourself. Each one of these houses rules a more introspective or personal, private part of your life and self. The top half is a little bit more is public. These houses speak to your public expressions and how you a little more public and a little more relational. You can also look at the chart split up into quadrants. So we looked at halves. Well, you can also look at the left and the right halves as well. So the right half is so this is actually 4 through 9 is the right half. These are more relational. So then the bottom, like 4 through 6, is personal and relational, and the seventh through 9th is public and relational. And I'll get into the specific meanings of each house in a minute. And then the 10th through 12th is like public, big, collective. And then 1 through 3 is introspective, personal. So the first house is, we think of, there's 12 houses, there's 12 signs. You can think of the energy of Aries. The first house is how you walk into a space. It's your instincts. It's your how you express yourself, like your instinctive forms of expression. Like how you walk into a room naturally and innately. It's what people see of you. And so it can also, Aries rules the head, it rules the face and head. Planets in the first house can sometimes speak to your face. So like Saturn is a very angular planet. Saturn in the first house, folks may have like angular features. The moon is round and emotionally expressive. And so moon in the first house folks like me sometimes have rounder faces and can you can really see their feelings on their face. It's not necessarily a rule because, like I said, there's so many other things going on in the chart that can, you know, that can present challenges to that, or that can ask me not to express my feelings. Like, what is the moon doing? That's what these lines are. These lines are the connections and relationships between each planet. They're called aspects. Some of the aspects, sometimes planets move in ways. The aspects are all about the geometric shapes that the planets are tracing in the sky as they move. And so some of these types of relationships that planets are in, the energy between these two planets will flow super easily. There's like easy conversation between these energies. They're coming together. They're working together. And sometimes they're more tense. Sometimes it's like squares or oppositions are names of some of the aspects that are more that are more tense feeling, and can like ask us to reconcile something or to turn a corner, or and so neither are good nor bad. It's it depends on what energies are flowing together, depends on what the tension is about. And some of the tense energies sometimes can direct us, can be very directional for us and informational for us. So just not attributing like good or bad to any of these aspects. So there's a lot of layers to look at. When you're looking at these lines, that's what you're looking at. Different websites. I pulled this up from a website called Astro Dash. I'll put it in the chat. Astro Dash Chart or Charts. Oh, let me see. Astro-charts.com. It's a free, if you're interested in checking it out, it's a free service where you can pull up your chart. Let me make sure it's, with an S. Okay, astro.charts.com. Dash charts. And so each chart drawing service uses, some of them use different colors. So you just would look for the legend and see red usually means a square. I think this service uses purple as a sextile, green is a trine, and then blue is an opposition. So if you're feeling called to figure out what those things mean, you can that's something that you can look into for as a next step in your study of your chart. So that is to say, my moon is in Cancer in the first house, and that could mean a lot of different things. So looking at that, and then looking at the way that the moon is speaking to other planets is an important step in interpreting your chart. So the first house is about, there's phrases for each house. So I am myself is a common phrase that folks use to understand the first house. I am myself. The second house, if the first house is I am myself, the second house is I am myself in relationship. Oh, sorry. I am myself. I am my values. I was jumping ahead. I am my values. And so right after Aries comes Taurus. So we're thinking about Venus. We're thinking about our values. The second house is a space that we can look at to see how we make our money, how we hold our own value and sense of value and worthiness, how we see ourselves. The third house is, if we're moving again along that the 12 signs, we have Aries here, we have Taurus, then we have Gemini. So the third house is about our communication style. The third house is a place that we can also look for information about our sibling relationships, our neighborhood, like our childhood neighborhood, because thinking of Mercury and thinking of Gemini, these energies of like quick passing along of information, and it's this energy of movement, like within a small space, like and so the third house also speaks to like short trips and like bike rides and things like that. It's also about divination and magic. channeling. These are third house themes. The fourth house then is right after Gemini, we have Cancer. The fourth house is a space of home and family, our sense of belonging, our roots, our land relationships, our ancestry. There are many other places. There are other places in the chart where you can look to see. Depends on what what about your ancestors are you looking to see. But yeah, so the fourth house can speak to our roots, our like early psychological roots. What like set us up for our psychology as adults. It's also a space of reparenting and parenting, our experiences with our parents.
We have a question here. Why are some of these houses bigger or smaller than others and occupy more than one sign?
Good question. Okay, that's because I use a house system that does not prioritize like making it easy to look at. Because I choose this house system called Campanus. That if you have seen your chart, if you're used to seeing your chart with like perfectly even houses, chances are you're looking at it through whole house, a system called whole house signs. And what that system does is it takes your rising sign, and it would have started out my first house here. So it would be the Cancer would have moved down here. It would start out here, and then the whole first house would be Cancer, and then the whole second house would be Leo. It just squeezes it into one even space. It's easier to look at. It's more digestible. But for me, it misses some accuracy. There's so much more information that you can get if you're willing to sacrifice like how easy it is to look at your chart if they were all even. So yeah, the Campanus houses it's a space-based system. It's the math, the calculations that it uses to plot this out and spit out this chart by just putting in my birth time and place and day. The math, the calculations that it uses prioritizes and emphasizes space, so that the distance between points in the sky and me when I was born. There are other systems, like there's a system called Placidus that also uses space, prioritizes space, but it more so is time based. So that system would look a little bit more like the whole sign houses. That's a default system. A lot of chart websites where you can pull up your chart or apps, they have Placidus as their default. That one is a little more time based. It tracks. It has it set so that it's based on like how long it takes for one like planet to move to a point. It's kind of confusing. It's I can put a link to a podcast that talks about it, an episode that talks about it in the chat if you'd like to get like nerdy into it. But it's just all about math and what calculations are chosen in order to spit out this image of the sky. Yeah. I hope that answers that question. There's what you pointed out about how some houses are smaller than others and some are bigger. That is something that another reason why I really like Campanus houses, because there's no other house system where you'll see that. And that's something called, it's just another layer of information that you can interpret as an astrologer. So that this is called an interception. So you see how Scorpio is like squeezed into my 5th house and Taurus is squeezed into my 11th house. That means that there's no house in my whole chart that's in Scorpio. Even though Scorpio's in the 5th house, what sign your houses are in is determined by the sign that they start in, the angle of the house. So my 5th house is in Libra. It contains Scorpio, but when we think about my 5th house themes, they're all Libran. I have a Libra 5th house. And so what it means when you have signs that are intercepted inside of a house it's an indication of something that you've inherited from your parents that's sort of like unfinished or unresolved um, within them. And I mean, there's lots of ways that you can find inheritances from your parents of that nature, but this is one of them, and it's like a game changer in interpreting charts. To me, it's just like I want the more information, the merrier, and that's why I pick a more complicated looking house system than um, like a system that might be easier to just digest. It's just my preference. I don't think there's a right or wrong, but that's my preference. So yeah, intercept houses are super interesting. It basically means like Taurus and Scorpio energy for me is I have to like work harder to develop my um, to feel into and like really embody those energies. Um, yeah, in short. So that's an example of why I like Campanist houses. To each his own, though. So, first house, I am myself. Second house, let me just make sure. Okay. Second house, I am my values, I am my resources. Third house is about how I communicate. The fourth house is about my sense of home, my sense of family. I am my family, my sense of belonging, my roots, my connection with land. And the fifth house is, if we're moving through the zodiac, we're at Leo now. It's a space of like how I play, my creative energy. Yeah, my artistic and creative zone, like when I'm just in a creative zone, and like tapping into that innocent play, pleasure, and um, so and it's also a space that speaks to our relationships with our children, and so you'll see that as we're going, 1 through 3 are really about my own self relationships. 4 and 5 and 6, these houses are starting to get a little more materialized and a little more relational, having a little bit more to do with like what we bring out of ourselves and how we relate to our environments. The sixth house, it speaks to our habits and our patterns and our daily, how we feel on the day to day, our daily routines. It can speak to our health and our work, because yeah, like I said, it's like how we feel every day, and so things going on in the sixth house can influence our health. Things, if there's planets in the sky right now that are moving through. So for me, this is my chart moving through Sagittarius. Then I'm gonna feel it in my body. I'm gonna feel it. It's gonna impact my day to day and my and how I feel on the day to day. It's the sixth house is about work because again, it's like how we spend our days. So there's many places we can look in the chart to see reflected our relationship with work. The sixth house is one of them. The second house is another, because the second house speaks more to like how we generate resources, how we generate money. And then the 10th is another, and we'll get there in a bit. So this is the lower half of the chart, more personal parts of us. Then we get up into the upper half of the chart, and then we start to see more relational and more public parts of ourselves. The seventh house is the space of our committed partnerships. And so the seventh house, the phrase for the seventh house is, I am myself with you. Seventh house mirrors the first house. The first house is I am myself. The seventh house is I am myself with you. So astrology is full of these continuums and these spectrums and this mirroring and interconnected, language. So you can feel into first house, seventh house energies as one continuum, as I also suggested you to do with the zodiac, with the signs, feeling into each sign and the sign 6 months apart from that sign to help you to really understand that energy as a continuum of energy. Same thing with the houses. So the first and seventh are one continuum, the house of committed partnerships. So for me, that Venus retrograde is happening in my house of committed partnerships, right in Capricorn. So then we have the eighth house. The eighth house is one of my favorite houses, but I have a lot of favorite houses. My sun, the sun when I was born, this little symbol here is for the sun. My sun was in the eighth house, so of course I feel um, a sense of familiarity. I identify with eighth house themes. The eighth house, so if the second house is about our values, the eighth house is about collective values. And because it's such a strange place, the eighth house, it's the place of grief. It's the place of transformation. Because the eighth house is about collective values, it's also about like taboos. It's also about what the collective doesn't value, and because it's about that, it's also a place that asks us to let go. It's parts of ourselves that we have to let go. We have to surrender. It's Scorpio, right? If we're moving along the signs, we were at Libra here, and then after Libra is Scorpio. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, so all these themes that we talked about with rebirth and death, and letting go, the letting go that Pluto asks us to do in order to transform. So yeah, these are eighth house themes. It's a really interesting place to feel into when you think about collective values, and then the theme of surrendering and letting go, and transforming in truth. Okay, ninth house. So now we're getting to Sagittarius. The ninth house is space of higher learning, higher education, like spirituality, and it's opposite the third house. So we have Gemini and Sagittarius. So we have like the mind and thinking and teaching and communication and travel and then we have and also divination, right? Channeling of information. Then on the other side, mirroring those third house themes, we have the ninth house, which is speaking to much bigger, expansive knowledge, wisdom, Jupiter, travel, and these themes of like expansive connection and spirituality. Okay, and it's the place of ceremony, the ninth house. So then we move into the 10th house. So even though this house system that I use doesn't have normally, not normally, but with whole sign houses and some other house systems, you'll have the ninth and 10th house will end right here in the middle. And then the third and fourth house will come together right here. So you'll have like a plus sign through the middle that's a clean, easy plus sign. In this, what you see here is the MC. That's the midheaven, and that is the top of the chart. Even though with this house system it's tilted on the side, it is. If you look at the chart as a clock, the midheaven is midday. It's the middle of the day. It's it's the most public part of ourselves. So mine is in Pisces, and which is like a very sensitive and personal, deep part of ourselves. The midheaven is like what you bring of yourself out into the collective. It's like how you are seen, what you bring of yourself to be seen. It's what you contribute. So that the midheaven starts out the 10th house. And the 10th house is the place of your like vocation. Some people think of it as the place of your career. I don't see the 10th house as being a space that has to do with how you make a living. But I do see it as having to do with what you are bringing to the collective, what your contribution is. Profession, you can think of it as. And so that's the 10th house. Right, so the midheaven always starts out the 10th house. Opposite of the midheaven, down here between the third and fourth house, this website doesn't show it, but is something called the nadir. You might see an IC. That's the Latin. It's short for the Latin name of the nadir. The nadir is the most private part of ourselves, so it's opposite the most public part, the midheaven. And so yeah, between the third and the fourth house, it's the most private part of ourselves, which is like the place within us from which It's like that heart center that I was talking about, like the place within us from which we receive information, from spirit, from which we connect quietly to our most true and authentic part of ourselves. Um, it's a beautiful place. So yeah, so those are called angles. The ascendant, the nadir, the descendant, and the midheaven. They're known as angles, and they are just as important as planets. They're just as important as anything else that you in the chart. So we have the 10th house. Then we get into the 11th house. The 11th house is the space of our communities, our larger friend groups, but it's a little bit more specific than that. It's the affiliations, the dreams, the aspirations that bring us together with our communities. And it's now we're so right, the 10th house, that space of like vocation and work and what you're here to build, that's a Capricorn house. The 11th house is Aquarius, the networks of connection between us and our people. It's our dreams, it's our aspirations, it's our gratitude, and it's opposite the fifth house, right, which is our space of creativity and flow and innocence and play and pleasure. And so I just think it's really beautiful to look at how the houses mirror one another, and yeah. Okay, the 12th house, 12th final house, right? 12th final sign is Pisces, so we're feeling into Piscean energy. The 12th house is the place of behind the scenes. It's like the hidden. It can speak to our secrets. It can speak to our dream life, because that's like behind the scenes part of our lives. Yeah, it is the culmination of all of us, of our allness, that is unseen. Okay. So there you have it. I invite you to look at that was a whole lot. We just went through all of the signs, we went through all the planets, we went through all the houses, and like looked at, what a birth chart is. So let's like let that land. So if you feel called to, you can look up your own chart, and you can look into what sign each house is in for you. Again, the sign that each house begins in is the sign that the house is in. If you're using whole houses or equal houses, you don't need to even think about that, because they're all going to be even. But if you're using Campanus or Placidus like me, yeah, the sign that the house is in is the one that it begins in. Yeah, and see how that resonates for you. The planets, you can then also look and see, okay, well, my rising is in Cancer. That speaks to how I naturally walk into a space, heart forward, emotional openness, and my moon is there in the first house. So my emotional life is a very important part of how I move through life. Then what is the moon doing? I see the moon is trining. It's trining Venus. What could that mean? So you can just go like that and go to each planet and see what they're up to. There are many, many, many other layers of interpretation to the chart, but that's a good starting point. If you're looking for an entry point. All right. Okay, we have 10 more minutes. I wanted to do a final bit of meditation with you all. I think we'll do that. I also wanted to I'll just name these things that I wanted to talk about, and then if it calls to you, you can look into it. Lunar gardening is, so I wanted to just discuss some ways to apply astrology to your plant medicine practice, or herbalism to your astrology practice. um, beginning with your, you know, your body's memory, and what your what plants. So centering your intuition, what plants to you speak to the planets that we discussed. What when you go through your chart, uh, and you notice, what signs your houses are in, or what houses your planets are in, or what signs your planets are in. What plants maybe come up for you around what would be supportive, and also, what plants, um, what plants are you already in relationship with? Where can you find that in your chart? See if you can locate, the plants that you've always been super drawn to, that your body has brought to you, and has asked you to work with. Um, where do you see that articulated in your chart? Um, okay, so then applications and yeah, okay. So, some applications of astrology to your herbal practice, and herbalism to your astrology practice. Lunar gardening. So, first of all, attuning to the cycles around you. Astrology is all about cycles. So, attuning to the seasons, paying attention, just paying attention to how you feel in the winter, how you feel in the summer, what your what your being is, how your being is shifting with the seasons, eating with the seasons, attuning your life to the seasons, um, attuning yourself to, and your body to the moon through its phases. um, so yeah, the moon is a really great starting point for, you know adjusting, for practicing astrology in your daily life, because the moon, moves through its cycles every 28 days. At the beginning of the cycle, there's no moon in the sky, and then it begins to grow gradually. We have a bigger and bigger moon, and as it grows, what's growing in your life? Um, and in 2 weeks, it grows to its peak, and we have a full moon. So 14 days into the cycle, we have a full moon, and then after that full moon, it starts to release and let go and get smaller and smaller and smaller. What are you letting go of? What are you seeing? What are you seeing evaporating away? What's changing, as the moon wanes back to a dark moon, where there's no moon in the sky again? How do you feel on the new moon? How do you feel when there's no moon in the sky? How do you feel on the new moon? How do you feel on a full moon? Just start paying attention, and then if you are really, and when you are noticing the vibrational impact that this, planet that's closest to us, and that we know impacts the tides, we know impacts, menstruating people's bodies, in that specific way. We know impacts even the, concrete of a city. New York City rises, I think it's 14 inches every day, rises and falls 14 inches every day because of the gravitational pull of the moon. So, of course, there's a felt impact of the moon on our bodies as well, and more subtly than that, on our psycho, spiritual, and emotional lives. So just paying attention, just notice, be your own case study. Okay, and then lunar gardening is similar. So you're planting your gardens according to the lunar phase, and you'll notice that the soil, the waters of the soil, are more risen up to the surface during the new moon. I mean, during the full moon. And there are, better times for planting. There's better times for planting roots than planting seeds, and so look into lunar gardening, if you're curious about that. Okay, so we have 5 minutes. I'd love to just close with a little bit of a meditation. And if you have to go, now is probably a good time, because I think I might, if that's okay, I might take like I might go a few minutes past 5:30. Yeah, so fully understand if you have to leave right at 5:30 on the West Coast. It's 8:30 where you are, many of you are, if not all of you. Yeah, all of you. So yeah, let's dive in. All right, so feel free to close your eyes, or if you would prefer to just lower them, you can do that. You can identify a point to focus on if you want to keep your eyes open. And slow down your breathing. We just journeyed through the cosmos, through our solar system, through the groupings of stars that surround our solar system, all spinning together around this galaxy. So let's just take a moment to check in with our hearts, check in with our bodies. How do you feel? How did all that information land for you? And if there was any information that, or insights that invited change in some way for you, just witnessing that. And you can just invite, maybe on your next inhale, just with trust that whatever spark of inspiration or curiosity you may have experienced over the last couple of hours together, you can trust that, trust in that spark of change to guide you in a way that is aligned with the threads of medicine, of healing, of intimacy and connection, of connection with the earth, connection with the stars and with one another, and of being in right relationship with ourselves, with our planet, with one another, with all of the life around us. You can trust that whatever spark of curiosity or inspiration you may have felt or experienced in the last couple hours is a seed of change that is inevitably set to support you and all those who came before you and all those who will come after you in your relationships with the planet and with the cosmos and with your own depth of self-knowledge and your own knowledge of your own gifts and medicine as a lineage. Just breathing into that trust. We can together take one inhale, one deep breath in, hold at the top of the breath, allowing it to circulate, and then release slowly, completely, letting go. All right. So when you're ready, you can open your eyes. I would love to invite any questions or shares from you all before we say goodnight. So we'll have a little mini Q&A. You can use the chat, or you can also unmute if you'd like to and just share your voice.
I'll just say that last meditation really helped to integrate everything, just having the pause to digest everything, and really enjoyed that. The whole experience was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much for holding this space and facilitating and bringing us all together. Really appreciate you.
just wanted to say thank you. Sorry I was late, but the part that I did see was fascinating and very good overview. And I love how you invite, if you're curious, here's where to go look for it. That's a lot about self-study. So thank you for inviting us to do that and encourage our own development.
Thank you, Kimberly. Yes, it is. I'm inviting you all to be your own astrologers. Thank you. Natalie, you unmuted. Did you want to share something?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to share with the group that the Rider Waite and like the Thoth Tarot, if people work with that, you can use it as if it's a book and lay out the planet positions in their cardinal, fixed, and mutable positions. And it can be a way to study. Yeah. Particularly the Thoth one. I believe that's the one that has the astrological signs on it. But it also correlates easily to the Rider-Waite Tarot.
Yeah, the Thoth, I've heard of it pronounced. Beautiful. I want to go do that right now. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure and an honor. Thank you for listening to me talk for 2.5 hours. I appreciate all of your presence. Be well.
Just one last comment here from Claire. I learned so much and had really surprising connections to the information shared about what is currently happening in astrology. Thank you so much for this. And all the thank yous are coming flooding in. Thank you, Danielle. The information was great. I learned something new all the time. Totally enjoyed the class.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Appreciate all of you. Take care.
Take care. Thank you.